Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Start Local, the podcast focused on helping businesses in Chester County, PA, and the greater Philly area as they try to navigate through the COVID-19 economy. My name's Joe Casabona, and before we bring in the rest of the folks on this fine show, I want to tell you about a very monthly, very free newsletter that Liam and I are starting over here called Start Local Monthly. You can sign up for free over at startlocal.co/news. And the benefit of that is you will get recaps of our episodes from each week of the month. You'll get news around the county, maybe even some tips and tricks. We want to hear from you about that too. So whatever you want to know, we're open to feedback. But you will definitely get recaps of the show, takeaways, and news happening around the county. That's over at startlocal.co/news for the totally free, totally monthly newsletter. Okay, so with that out of the way, I want to bring in my fellow co-host, Liam Dempsey. Liam, how are you today?
Hey, Joe, I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our guest today is Josh Maxwell. He is a Chester County Commissioner, and we are going to be talking about some current events related to COVID-19 around communication and local school challenges and things like that. But first, Josh, how are you?
I am doing great, Joe and Liam, and thank you so much for having me. I want to let you know I did just sign up for your newsletter while you're doing that perfectly nice introduction. So we were +1 on the newsletter so far, and we haven't even posted the podcast yet.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm Josh Maxwell. Been on the Board of Commissioners since January. Before that, spent 10 years as the mayor in Downingtown. Lifelong Chester County guy, and we spent more time in a pandemic than not during our first year in office, but here to help as best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we didn't talk about this before the show, mostly because I was embarrassed to have to clarify that. But I thought you were the same Josh Maxwell. I just recently bought a house in Downingtown, so I've heard your name around and things like that. So very cool. Well, thank you for that introduction for who you are and what you do. Now, I know Liam has some well-worded questions here that he just sent me for the show notes. So I'll throw it over to Liam for the first one.
Hey, Josh, thanks for joining us today. I know you and your colleagues at the county are busy, so thanks for making the time. With so many different grant and loan programs available at the federal, state, and even county level, it all gets a bit muddled in where support is coming and from where. And I think it's important, particularly from a local business perspective, to know that not only is our state, but our county is working just as hard as we are to keep our businesses afloat and surviving. Can you talk about what Chester County has done in the 6 months of COVID-19 and really to support local businesses and local nonprofits?
Yes. And Liam, I really appreciate the question. Chester County, we're very proud of our business community. Having a thriving economy here is part of our culture. It's why people move here. So we realize as a government, it's really important from the get-go to partner with our business community to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure people are afloat. Earlier, I think we had a first COVID case on March 13th and saw the ramp up around the country, realizing it was coming our way quickly and limitations on stopping it certainly existed. So we pulled together business minds and implemented a grant program, essentially an emergency grant program for folks who weren't going to be able to pay their rent, small Main Street businesses, grants capped at $25K. So we were just so worried about people in May not being able to get to July. So we did a round of $5 million grants just to make sure people can make it till the summer, and then we could readjust and figure out what industries are most hurt, what industries are okay. I go to Home Depot once a week. I'm also a new Downingtown homeowner, so back and forth to Home Depot. They seem to be okay, but the restaurants in between certainly are not. So now we're pulling together pieces to figure out how we can work together as a community to both advocate for our businesses that are struggling and maybe tailor our investments into the sectors that need it. Another thing, and I think you touched on it, Liam, was that there's all these grants out there. There were state, there was federal, county, and then hosts of other things that were available, PPP. So we launched a website, restorechestercounty.org, which was a one-stop shop for any questions someone might have. I think we were able to pull $225 million in grant funding from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania into Chester County. I think we received the most grant funding from the state just because we made the system as simple as possible. And we partnered with the Economic Development Council to help make that happen. So if you go to restorechestercounty.org, you can see all the guidelines from CDC, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the county, where we are in phases. And you don't have to click through to any other government websites. Everything you need should be right there embedded. And there's also an email and a phone number. If you have any questions, it's business@chesco.org. And please, encourage businesses to fire away. What grant funding is out there for my type of business? What type of loan programs are available for my type of business? What type of rental assistance is available for my type of business? So we have a hotline, an email address for people to call, and our team's 24/7, well, not 24/7, but every day available for help.
Yeah, you've mentioned the website, the restorechestercounty.org, and there's another website that the URL is long enough that I'm not going to try to rattle it off, but it launched and it displays data. It launched pretty quickly into COVID-19, early March, April, and it tracks the medical side of COVID-19 in Chester County, cases by township level and sadly deaths and the like. In addition to Restore Chester County. So as a business owner, I've noticed that the county has made communication a priority during this challenging time. But also as a business owner, I know that when our to-do list is very, very long and the deadlines are all due today, communication can go out the window because we're getting the work done. But that hasn't happened with Chester County from where I'm sitting. And I wonder if you can talk about the mindset and what you and your team are doing to ensure that communication stays a priority when, at some level communication, it's difficult to kind of manage that and see that as a deliverable, right? Because it's not putting together the loan program. It's not making sure these services are available. Yeah, you got to make sure people know about the loan program. But talk about how you and your colleagues at Chester County have made that a priority and what that looks like in kind of a day-to-day office environment.
Sure. Culture is everything. When we got started, we have 2 new people on the board this year, and we wanted transparency to be a priority for us in our first year in office. And we set up things like a transition team, which is really just a way to get smart people to give you free advice. Executives from companies like Vanguard, and I think it was chaired by the president of Westchester University, and they were going to look at everything and give us recommendations. But then COVID happened, and I came from a government standpoint, a small town. I was mayor in a town of 9,000 people for 10 years. And the emails you would get, people knew what a mayor did, and it would be policing, or it would be trash pickup or snow removal. And people would call or email and say, hey, this is a problem I need fixed. But in county government, you don't really have that back and forth because you're, just paying the mortgage on the courthouse, your trains are running on time, human services is really important. But as long as the deeds get recorded, the wills get recorded, there's not a whole lot of back and forth like, Josh, I need you right now to fix this thing. But COVID happened and people started tuning into county government and what we were saying, I think, a way that hasn't happened in decades, or usually doesn't happen with counties. There's people tuning into mayors of large cities, governors of places like New York, doing press conferences every day. And people started going to our website in historic numbers. So we wanted to open source as much information as possible, realizing that people were watching the news every day. Many people were scared, if not all people were scared. I certainly was. And we wanted to get as much information out there and just trust our public to make the right decisions moving forward. So, whether it's wearing masks, what our positivity rate is it 7%, whether it's 3.5%, people really know what to do at this point based on where those numbers are. So we just wanted a dashboard that we could frequently update. People would look at every day. People would read our newsletters, read social media accounts, and get that information. And we really trusted the Chester County public to make the right decisions if we open source the information as it came in. And so that was a big priority of us. And I would say, generally, the public in Chester County really has. We've had some of the lowest COVID spread in Southeast PA. Extraordinarily proud of that. And people are generally doing right by the health recommendations. And so, I think we're just kind of, as you mentioned, Liam, we're in a good place geographically and in a neighborly type of way. So it's, I walk down the street and people say, "Hey, I saw the dashboard today. Why are our numbers up by 10?" I'm like, "Well, two families, add up to 10, and we contact trace, and we're going to make sure everyone's safe." And so that's the kind of way it worked out. Is we started getting a lot of attention. I tweet out the COVID numbers, and some of the largest shared social media I've ever had. And it's good that people are paying attention.
I just want to jump in there because I know a lot of people from other parts of the country. My brother Robbie works at Disney World, so he's right in Orlando and in Florida and things like that. And people are asking me how it's going here. Well, my wife is a nurse, and before she went out on maternity leave, I don't think they had any COVID cases, and that was like end of June. And it really speaks volumes to how well our area has handled it. So for those of you who maybe are not in Chester County or are not looking at the numbers, the way that maybe me or Liam or Josh do, I've been really impressed with this area's response, and I'm proud to live here in a place where the community does right by the rest of the community.
I think it's important just to mention is, we expect these waves. There's always one big wave and usually a smaller wave with the pandemic, and people know this. They've seen all the graphics, but some weeks are going to be really good weeks, and some weeks are going to be bad weeks in terms of a spread of a pandemic. 4th of July was a really bad week for us, where our numbers really spiked. So we didn't sugarcoat any of that. If we have a good week or a good month, we say, "Hey, we had a good week, we had a good month. Keep it up." If we have a bad week, we say, "We had a bad week. It's going to delay school starting or something. It could delay school starting, but here are the numbers." So we're not hiding anything. We're not twisting one way or the other. It's the same positivity rate. It's the same cases. It's the same amount of fatalities. We don't alter our numbers in any way. We just open them up. If our numbers go high, people know to stay home more. If they're low, people start to feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, from a business standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. We can have an intellectual debate about what is the right infection rate to open businesses. But if we can't agree on what the infection rate is, it makes it hard for us to really set policy. And certainly we hear from businesses that one of the biggest challenges of COVID-19 is the unexpected nature of everything. And plans are this week and the next week and the week following, they're on to something different. So the level of transparency around the information has been really helpful. I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about the logistics of what that means in terms of, well, okay, we're going to do all these things. We got to share this information. You and the team at the county have agreed this. We're going to do this. Transparency is going to be our watchword, if you will. Information flow is going to be it. But someone's got to build the website. Someone's got to get the data together. Somebody's got to make sure. To be a bit silly about it, are there typos describing what the program is? Somebody's got to proofread that if we're going to put it out there. What is typos? We all make them, right? It's most embarrassing when we spell our own name wrong on our own website, and I've certainly been there. But talk about that. What does that look like as again, as an office project? There's a cost to that. There's a time to that. And what does that mean for you and your team?
It's incredibly impressive. And I will say, as a new employee of the county and one of the newest employees of the county, there's 2,400 employees in county government, 4th largest employer in the county, and I'm probably one of the newest. We declared a declaration of emergency in, I believe, March. What happened was the health department essentially took over what's called an emergency operations center. So they came down from, I think, the 3rd floor, 150 health employees, and took over what you would picture as like a county version of a situation room, except much bigger. There's maps on the wall, there's graphics, there's counts, there's fatality rates, there's hospital beds, ICUs, all this data that you could just look up and see from any part of this large room. And the employees took over where you'd have emergency services personnel typically sitting. And now the room's being run by public health experts, answering the phones, directing masks to hospitals, to Brandywine Hospital, to long-term care facility, calling the head of all 70 long-term care facilities was really, really important back in March and April. How many masks do you need? We'll drop them off. People getting in cars and driving them right to the long-term care facilities. There's a whole data team building that dashboard you talked about, updating it constantly and double-checking the math. Because as soon as you have math that's incorrect, I realize people aren't going to trust the next number you post, even if it was a typo. You have to triple check it. If you're a government right now, make sure what you're posting is correct. Otherwise, people are going to say, "That's not true. I don't believe you." So we'd had numbers come through the state. How it works right now is, say Chester County Hospital has 10 positive cases today. That gets uploaded to a state dashboard. That information database gets downloaded by the Chester County Health Department based on who of those 10 people live here. Now, those 10 at Chester County Hospital, 9 might live in Chester County. 1 might be a Delaware County resident or Montgomery County resident. So that has to be filtered out. They check the addresses. They call the folks to make sure it was them. There was, a lot of John Smiths in the world, right? So they go through, check all that, and then they contact trace. A whole team of people. Who have you been in contact with? And since we've gone from long-term care facilities and seniors having a huge rise in cases and fatalities and the rush to get those help, now we're into the younger folks, the 15 to 30 age range, which are allowed to spread. And a lot of those folks don't like being known as the person at the party who maybe had COVID-19 and found out about it 2 days later, and then calling their friends and saying, hey, everyone's quarantining for 14 days. The work that this health department has done to come down into a situation where they really haven't been in before, a worldwide pandemic coming to Chester County, and just owning that physical space, putting up those charts, calling health executives like at Penn Medicine saying, this is what we're going to do today, has been incredibly, just remarkable. They called it like, it was like finding out you're playing a Super Bowl against all odds, and you're just like Rocky Balboa. There's like, we're not prepared. Like this, there's no way to expect this to happen in my life, but we're prepared to run with it. And just so proud of the work they've done, and setting up that dashboard, and checking the data, which is a huge, I would say, is more work, and important work before it goes up every day between noon and 1 p.m. It's just, it's amazing. We're very lucky, and they're all underpaid. They're all overworked. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the data checking was that granular. I thought it was relatively automated. The hospitals output the data. Maybe it feeds into Johns Hopkins and it circulates out, and it's just API to API to API. I didn't realize for the data to go onto the site. I mean, I get the follow-up and the track and trace, but that's a lot of work. So please do take a moment to stop by that room when you get a chance and thank them for us. I appreciate it. Josh, with local schools still delivering virtual learning, childcare is a challenge for many parents and families in Chester County. We're hearing that in Downingtown Area School District and other school districts in the area. We're looking at reopening on some kind of staggered basis in the next month or two, numbers allowing. But we're getting a lot more communication from the leadership of the school district about it. What is the county doing to help parents and families deal with the many, many challenges of both children at home who are normally in school and then getting them to school in ways that maybe, the bus system isn't going to be able to handle, or who knows how it's all going to fold. How is Chester County preparing for all of this?
Well, it's difficult. In a place like Chester County, we have the population of Wyoming. We're the size of Rhode Island. We have diversity in academic opportunities, private schools, public schools, charter schools, online charter, online public. And it's tough to create a policy that applies to a private school with 100 students and a place like Downingtown, which has 13,000 busing. And we also don't know how parents are going to react to schools opening up. Are not 50% of parents going to drive their kids to school instead of put them on the bus? If they do, busing might be okay. You could have one kid per seat. But are 80% going to put their kids on buses? If so, we might need some more buses. So a lot of this is just feeling our way out and trying not to put ourselves in a position where anyone gets sick, or we have to go backwards in terms of recommendations. And so what the health department decided to do off the bat was, we're going to, realizing we had a spike in July, not recommend schools opening until October. Recommend, not require. Knowing full well that many schools are going to decide to do what they want anyway. And God bless them. And parents have the right to make a decision for their children as far as I'm concerned. So we waited and watched to see what happened, kept track of outbreaks every day. We get a list of outbreaks in Chester County. So far, so good regarding schools. And kind of wait and see. And then let these schools start realizing their capacity. How are the hallways? How many rooms are there? Can they do a hybrid situation? A, C, F, or whatever? And kind of just give them everything they need and be there to support them along the way, and just keep moving slow steps forward and not get too far ahead of ourselves, realizing this is a push on families and appreciative and there to help. The county is right now considering two things: support for schools and support on childcare. Early on, it became very clear to me that people weren't going to be able to work if their kids were virtual learning at home. The YMCA and others have programs where the kids can go there and set up computers and we'll be there to support them. But there really isn't that opportunity available for enough parents in Chester County. So I can't tip my hat too much on that. But by the end of the day, we should have some programs, the outlines of some programs for childcare and to support schools that have chosen to reopen here. And, when you look at Chester County, you have schools that have just tremendous capacity to be supportive of their kids, just a really good tax base, just already have the computers to give to kids who need them. And then we have other schools that might need some more support, where they don't have the tax base, where the kids, a larger percentage of the kids might not have computers and the school doesn't have the capacity to buy them. So we're looking at right now the way the counties can possibly fill those gaps and create some, as best you can in any situation, but especially a pandemic, create some equity in education, which is difficult to do in any day. But maybe this is an opportunity to move the ball in that direction. And I'll just add, regarding going back to a previous point and a previous question, something occurred to me, and that's that we were thinking about the short term in May and June and July, and getting people just to stay in their businesses, stay in their things. But now we're putting together a task force, a Restore Chester County task force for the next year and a half. What industries are going to need support. And we have, I think, 22 leaders throughout Chester County, from businesses to Chamber of Commerce, economic development experts, education, and those of us in government. And we're working hand in hand on like a 2-tier phase. Phase one will be short-term strategies for 21 sectors, creating actionable steps that the county can take to help get us up and going. The second phase is a larger, broader, long-term recovery plan that addresses overall recovery from economic impacts of COVID-19 and how we can strengthen our economic viability moving forward, making sure Chester County stays that economic power in Pennsylvania. And I think Pennsylvania needs us to be that from a tax perspective, from a government perspective. For Pennsylvania to get back on its feet, Chester County needs to be leading that charge. So we're getting the ball rolling on that, and we should have some announcements coming over the next few months and recommendations from our task force.
That's really fantastic. And I appreciate you walking through both kind of the logistics of getting all of the information available for transparency's sake and the considerations that you're making for schools and childcare and things like that. And as you said, nothing's public as we record this, but it will be soon. If people want to learn more, where can they find you and where can they find this information?
You can find me on any social media account. DMs are open. Restore Chester County is a great resource for the business community. Email, phone number, responses right away. It's designed to be that way. So I'd say Restore Chester County. The government website is chesco.org.
Fantastic. And I will link all of those resources over on startlocal.co in the show notes for this episode. Josh, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks, Josh. Take care.
All right, and thanks to everybody out there listening. Until next time, stay safe out there.